Welcome back to the YouTube home of Peter Pan lore and Peter Pan facts with me, your Peter Pan hobbyist, enthusiast and journalist, using my Peter Pan hobbyist, enthusiast and journalist brain and knowledge to bring you fun facts, lore and trivia, talk about the world of the Neverland, the story of Peter Pan, answer your guys' questions, and, Sergei is still here. Here he is, we're all bedecked for Pride Month, and it is stiflingly hot in the UK right now. Is it not? Yes, it is. It is so warm, it is unpleasant. And I don't want to have the fan on all the way through the video because then it'll go in the background for you guys. So instead, if you will forgive me, what I'm going to do is film this introduction and then abandon you, and I will do the rest of this video as a voiceover because I can record that while not standing in front of 3 lights and basically drenching myself in sweat. So thank you for joining in with this video, and yeah, I'll film a little outro now and you can just have my voice for the rest of it. Alright, come on then, Sergei, let's get an ice cream. So to celebrate Pride Month, this video is going to be talking about LGBT stuff and pride within the world of the Neverland. I've got 4 things I'm going to talk about, some of them in more detail than others, and you guys can make up your own mind and let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. The first thing I'm going to talk about is the Fairies, and you guys have probably heard this one before, but let's talk about it anyway. So something incredibly fun about the Fairies on the Neverland is that canonically they're an example of having multiple different gender identities. And this detail goes all the way back to the 1904 stage play, where Wendy Darling describes, "The mauve fairies are boys and the white ones are girls, and there are some colours who don't know what they are." This being an example of gender identity across the spectrum all the way back to the early 1900s, which is quite an achievement, to be honest. It gets edited just a little in the novel, which was 1911, where Wendy says this: "They live in nests on the top of trees, and the mauve ones are boys and the white ones are girls, and the blue ones are just little sillies who are not sure what they are." Personally, I'm a fan of both. I love the idea of just being a little silly. That fits me quite well, I reckon. And a lot of other people in my comments have said they quite enjoy that as well. However, in the original stage play, it's other colours, meaning it's not just mauve, white, and blue. We also have many other colours. So I choose to combine them, and you can call yourself a little silly, but you can be whatever colour you would like to be. So I sort of enjoyed that much better as a read, sort of combining the 2 different bits of lore there. Now, we don't know a great deal else about the fairies on the Neverland, but this tiny tidbit of information actually tells us quite a lot. First of all, it's Wendy Darling who says it, and her as a character, while yes being very observant, is also the mother figure. She likes to stay home, she doesn't go out and get involved in the fighting and the combat. While she does explore the Neverland and go out on some of the adventures, she isn't out as much as all the others. Now, Wendy Darling probably doesn't get along with the fairies too much, or at least she probably doesn't approach them too much, because of Tinkerbell and how Tinkerbell behaves towards her, and also Tinkerbell and some of her friends try to carry Wendy back to the mainland at one point, so I highly doubt there's a lot of trust there, meaning that Wendy Darling, the homebody, the mother figure who stays at home the most, doesn't go out adventuring the most, and has the least trust for the fairies, still knows this piece of information. That must mean that it's fairly prominent, a fairly obvious thing on the Neverland that just is part of the fairy society. Nobody's saying it's wrong or it should be stopped, it is just a part of the fairy culture, the fairy way. It's embraced and it's perfectly normal, and that tells us a lot about the island itself. So essentially, the Neverland Island is very accepting of multiple different gender identities. Let me know yours in the comments down below, and what colour would you be? When we're talking about colour for the fairies as well, I'm imagining it to be the colour of their magic, the colour of their fairy dust, the colour of their wings, that kind of thing. Although you could go for skin colour too, you can be bright pink, you can be whatever colour you want. Remember, Disney, Tinkerbell is not white and blonde. I mean, she could be, but she definitely doesn't have to be. And she has no canonical description in the original story either, so she can be anything you like. Also, canonically, Tinkerbell is a curvy girl. Do with that what you will. Anyway, let's move on to the next. Next up, we're going to talk about Captain Hook. And I've talked about this before, much like the fairies, some of you will have heard this before, but he's so fascinating to get into, let's do it again. There is a lot to get into with Captain Hook, so to just sum it up before I tell you all the different bits in bullet points, I want to say this. The biggest point about Captain Hook is not about what we speculate his sexuality or his gender to be. The fact is that it doesn't affect how his men see him at all. This man is still feared by his enemies, loved by his crew, and feared by his crew. He is respected, he is admired, he is feared, he is adored, all of those things that he wants, he has it, and nothing to do with his appearance, his personality, his gender, his sexuality, any of that has any impact on it whatsoever. And that's what I think is the biggest deal with his character, because particularly when we talk about the more feminine aspects of his personality. It will be very easy to play into those and make him look idiotic or stupid, or, oh look, he thinks he's big and scary, but actually he's not. No, Captain Hook is terrifying. Even Peter is stupid wary of this man. While he has cocky outbursts and everything, he is still very aware that this is a brutal opponent who could kill him. And that's what I want you to bear in mind as we're going through the little bullet points of information we have about him and his backstory. So, Captain Hook, what does he mean for LGBT and pride within the world of the Neverland? Well, one of the first things to know about Captain Hook comes from an essay that J.M. Barrie wrote called Captain Hook at Eton, where he talks about the man and his story in great detail, and one of the things he tells us is that he never had any woman in his life. Now, you can choose to make of that what you will. He could be a completely cisgendered straight man who just never got himself a girlfriend or a wife. However, combining it with all of the other things and different aspects of the man's personality, I choose not to see it that way. But let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Another big thing to talk about with Captain Hook is his gender presentation and what it might mean for him and the underlying parts of his personality, his gender identity, his sexuality, and all of this. One of my favourite quotes about Captain Hook, when J.M. Barrie describes him in the descriptions, is that he has a touch of the feminine about him, as with all the greatest of pirates. This description does a very good job of painting a few things. One is a picture of the man, 2 is an impression of him as a person, and 3 is an impression of him versus the rest of the world. James Hook, of course, is a pirate and a pirate captain. He is feared, he is revered, he is so many things. However, we also know that there's a sadness to him. We know that he is melancholy, he talks to himself, he knows that no little children love him, that when they're playing games, nobody wants to be Hook, and that unlike characters such as Smee, he doesn't have affection towards him. He is just feared and hated. And to a certain degree, this seems to concern him. It bothers him. And it makes him sad and even more alone. He has a brilliant Eton education, he attended colleges, he is very well read, he loves romantic poetry and sweet music, he is very educated and of a completely different class to the rest of his crew. He sees this and so do they, and this adds to his feeling of loneliness, because while they are his crew, they are also his dogs. As dogs, they fear and they obey him, but they're not his close companions. Smee is the closest that he has in this regard, and you could see this as a potential romantic relationship, or the spark of one, certainly. Because Mr. Smee is the only companion Hook has, not just the closest companion, but the only one. We know that Hook has cried over Mr. Smee, we know that despite having feelings about wanting to hurt him, he can't. He can kill the rest of his men, he has killed other members of his crew when they have done very minimal things to him, but Mr. Smee he can never bring himself to, and that marks Smee out, particularly against the rest of the men. And again, it could lean into a romance to their relationship. We also know that after Captain Hook is dead, Mr. Smee, being one of the few survivors of the pirate ship fight, then makes a precarious living by travelling the world and telling stories about how he was the only man that Captain Hook was ever afraid of. And that is very interesting as well. You could read into it and say that Smee has decided that he is going to make up this story and procure off Hook's death and that kind of thing. However, I can also see it as almost an agreement between the two of them. There is that sort of fear of Hook to Smee, and in a way, Smee knows it. Hook sees him as different, he has singled him out from the rest of the crew, and he almost fears this lovable nature to Smee, perhaps even to himself. It's not just envy that others see Smee in a way that they never see Hook, but also that Hook himself sees Smee that way, and that could end up being his downfall, or possibly even just addressing that is strange for him. Perhaps that even leans into the femininity of Captain Hook. J.M. Barrie has described him as such, he has a touch of the feminine to him, and as well as loving sweet music and romantic poetry and flowers, perhaps Hook's feelings towards Smee, perhaps they confuse him, perhaps they feel wrong or something that he just can't quite understand. Maybe they go completely unverbalized, maybe it's something that because it wasn't important to the story, they just weren't mentioned by the author. I definitely see it going in many different directions, so let me know what you think about their relationship in the comments down below. I certainly think that shipping it is absolutely a-okay, and fairly in line with the canonical lore. Speaking about that femininity in Captain Hook again though, it goes into his dress sense as well. At one point in his career, Captain Hook was compared to the figures of King Charles II and the royal Stuart family of the United Kingdom. This affected him in such a way that he now apes their apparel. He looks how they look, he copies their dress sense and their style. And looking at the images and the pictures and these wonderful, sumptuous clothes that they wore, and comparing them to the stage costumes and the designs of Captain Hook over the years that have drawn inspiration from this, you can absolutely see a touch of the femininity there. He has long, dark curls. He is also described as being very, very attractive. This is a beautiful man. He's described as being almost terrifying and sorrowful, but nonetheless striking and beautiful. The exact quote is this: "He was two Etonians rolled by the magnanimous gods into one. In a word, the handsomest man I have ever seen, though at the same time perhaps slightly disgusting." This quote comes from J.M. Barrie's writing Captain Hook at Eton, A Strange Story. So Captain Hook has a touch of the feminine to him, not just in personality, but also in appearance. Why is this important for an LGBT and pride perspective? Well, because, as I said at the beginning of Captain Hook's section, it doesn't change how people perceive him. He is still feared, he is still loved and revered, he is still a great enemy, a great captain. He has risen to the rank of captain. He is the fiercest pirate on the seven seas. They do not even feel that they need a night watchman on the ship because they float immune in the horror of their name. The Jolly Roger, the ship that is captained by Captain Hook. Why would we need a night watchman? Who's going to try to attack us? He's that terrifying. And this is the big thing I want to focus on with Captain Hook. Not that he might have been gay or asexual. Personally, I read him as any combination of the two, bisexual, anything like this. He didn't have a woman in his life. He might have had a relationship with Mr. Smee. Not just that. That falls by the wayside. The thing I want to focus on with Captain Hook is that touch of the femininity. Not just in personality, but in dress sense, and the fact that it doesn't change a thing. He is still able to be a pirate captain. He is still feared. Yes, Peter is cocky and arrogant, but he still treats him as a huge enemy. He tells all of the lost children not to fight him. Don't engage with him in a fight, leave him to me. Everyone has to agree to that. It's a promise they have to make to him. Peter knows this is a fearsome man. He even cries and has a nightmare after Captain Hook is dead, showing he mourns the man. That's how big of a foe he is. He is terrifying, he is brilliant, and all of this while not appearing as a stereotypical manly macho man. Captain Hook could be cisgendered and straight, but the fact is that by not appearing as a stereotypical mask man the entire time, and yet still being able to garner the reputation that he has and do all of the things that he has done, that is what is important for LGBT and Pride Month. Also, Captain Hook is almost certainly not a cisgendered straight man. I personally see him as gay, asexual leaning, and probably some sort of gender fluid or anything on that end of the spectrum personally. But what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments what your opinions are of Captain Hook, and let's move on to the next couple of points. Next up, I'd very quickly like to talk about Tiger Lily. And again, this is sort of speculative, but nonetheless, I think quite important. Over the years of making video essays and TikTok content about the Peter Pan lore and Peter Pan history and Peter Pan story and characters and all of this, Tiger Lily comes up fairly infrequently, but she is still very, very popular when she does. And something that's happened over the years is the more we've talked about her, the more people have started to speculate about her sexuality and various things like this, and I've started to listen. I didn't really think about it myself before, but the more people in my comment sections and in my DMs and friends were talking to me about it, the more I feel like, actually, there is a read to be said for Tiger Lily. So I'm going to read you a passage from the novel about her, and I'll let you guys make up your own mind. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. This quote is coming from Chapter 5, The Island Come True, of the 1911 Peter and Wendy novel by J.M. Barrie. Bringing up the rear, the place of greatest danger, comes Tiger Lily, proudly erect, a princess in her own right. She is the most beautiful, coquettish, cold, and amorous by turns. There is no one among them who would not have her to wife, but she staves off the altar with a hatchet. Now true, this isn't a great deal to go on, but think about how little we had about the fairies and how much we could tell about them from just a few sentences. So I think the same could be said for Tiger Lily, and given the amount of DMs and comments I've got about this, I think you guys are seeing it too. Tiger Lily, certainly I agree, could read as, well, not straight. I can see, given the DMs and comments you guys have said about it, I can see it. I can absolutely see Tiger Lily being a representation of a lesbian character. That's definitely a read that you can have. Now, later on, she does start to have what appears to be feelings towards Peter, at least in Wendy's point of view. However, don't forget that at this point in the story, Tiger Lily is so indebted to Peter. Her and her entire family owe him not just her life, but her afterlife as well. If you want more information on that, it's in my Tiger Lily videos. It's far too much to get into right now, but essentially Peter has saved her in so many ways. So given all of that feeling of indebtedness towards Peter, whether or not how Wendy reads the situation is correct, even if Tiger Lily does start to have some feelings towards Peter, that doesn't also mean that she has to be completely straight. It could partly be because she is indebted to him and she's trying to show him that, but also it could be that she has that little spark of feeling. She doesn't just have to be into men in order to have that, etc, etc. So your guys' reads on Tiger Lily over the years have sort of curved my opinion. I didn't really think about it before, but now I absolutely do. And while I'm not going to plaster a label on anybody, I do think it's very interesting and important to put Tiger Lily up there for contention. So what do you guys think? How do you read her? Let me know in the comments down below. And now I'm going to move on to just an overall perspective of the Neverland itself. Overall, I think the Neverland Island will be completely accepting, and in fact is completely accepting, of all identities and genders, everything like this. And part of it is to do with the things I've just talked about, Captain Hook, the fairies in particular, Tiger Lily, and all the different reads on all of these different characters, whether it's their sexuality, their gender identity, anything like this. But also just in general, I feel that the Neverland itself will be completely accepting, and these are the extra reasons why. Despite it being chaotic and dangerous, the Neverland does just give the vibe of being an inclusive and accepting place. It's where lost children are sent when their families haven't come to claim them. It's where Peter seeks refuge in his chaotic way. It's where pirates come and set down anchor. It's where Tiger Lily and her people, the gnomes, the tailors, princes, old ladies, magic and enchantment and adventure, everything is there. It is a full-on world of dreams and chaos and fantasy and adventure. And that just seems to gel with the LGBT experience, so I can certainly see it as being accepting of that. Also, to look at it in a different way, the Neverland has so much. It has danger, it has adventure, it has chaos and whimsy and all of these things. Why on earth would someone's gender identity or sexuality matter? They are so small, such minimal pieces of us in comparison to who we are, how we engage with the world, what we do on our adventures. I don't think the Neverland has any reason to care, and it certainly doesn't seem to when it comes to, at the very least, the fairies. If you only take away one thing from this video today to celebrate the month of Pride, please let it be this. Captain Hook's identity as a fairly effeminate man, but also still a fearsome pirate captain who never had a woman in his life. Tiger Lily's awesome, badass nature, her bravery, and the fact that she staves off the altar with a hatchet. The fairies, and the fact that some of them are boys, some of them are girls, and some of them are little sillies who don't know what they are. These are all matters of fact. What we read into them, what we perceive them as, how we relate to them, can vary depending on who the reader is, but they are still matters of fact. And that's what's important, because within the world of the Neverland, these are matters of fact. It's not played for laughs, it's not played to be derogatory, it's not something that they're trying to change, it is a part of each of these characters, and it's absolutely fine. You can be any of those things and still be a fearsome warrior. You can be any of those things and still be a fun little fairy. You can be any of those things and still be a badass warrior. It changes nothing. And that is primarily why I think that the Neverland Island is completely inclusive and accepting. Because ultimately, that's what being part of this community and pride in that community is all about. Acceptance. No matter who you are, no matter where you are on the gender identity or on the sexuality spectrum, whatever it is, you are still you. And that's bloody fine. Thank you very much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for sticking all the way to the end. I'm sorry it was just my voice, but hey, I'm telling you information. You don't need to see me for that, do you? So thank you very much for sticking with me all the way to the very end. Let me know your thoughts or theories or comments in the questions down below and the questions down below. It's very hot today. So let me know anything you would like me to talk about as well in the comments down below. If you want, you can DM me over on Instagram. There's Peter Pan Law there as well. Please follow the Peter Pan Law TikTok as well if you haven't already, and don't forget to give it a like and a subscribe. I did promise that if we got to 500 subscribers, I would make a Discord channel, so if that's something that you're wanting, let me know. Also, I have made little Sillies badges because you guys thought they were really cute and I was going to sell them. I still have a few left, so I'll put them over on the Peter Pan Law Ko-fi page if you would like them. They look like this, but you can't really see that, so I'll put a picture on the screen for you instead. So they say Little Sillies from the Neverland. They are little badges, so you can wear them and they're fairly discreet. They do have a sort of rainbow on them, but if you don't want them to be particularly big and in people's faces, they're just little ones. So if you fancy those, they are over on the Peter Pan Law Ko-fi page. All proceeds from those will be donated to Sergei's food rations for the week. So if you fancy showing your pride and your love of the Neverland, there's these over on the Ko-fi page. Thank you very much for watching. I love you all. Have a fantastic day and don't forget to feed and hydrate yourselves. All right, bye-bye.